Going back to the occupied Palestinian territory, and this time focusing on the West Bank. First, you will have seen last night we issued a statement on behalf of the Secretary General in which he said he was deeply concerned by the latest developments in that area, including the launch of large-scale military operations in Jenin, Tulkarm, and Tubas governorate by the Israeli security forces that involved airstrikes, which resulted in casualties and damage to civilian infrastructure. He strongly condemns the loss of lives, including that of children. The Secretary General said these dangerous developments are fueling an already explosive situation in the West Bank, further undermining the Palestinian Authority. He called for the immediate cessation of these operations. Today, our humanitarian colleagues warned that deadly warfare tactics that seem to exceed international standards for law enforcement are still occurring in the north. The governorates of Jenin, Tulkarm, and Tubas, the number of fatalities, according to what ocha is receiving, is 15 people in less than 2 days, with many others injured. Initial reports suggest that some families have been displaced, particularly in urban areas where Israeli security forces have repurposed homes as military positions. In multiple locations, heavy damage to infrastructure has been caused by military bulldozers. Electricity and telecom outages are also reported. Meanwhile, there continues to be military operations near hospitals, severely impacting those facilities. An UNRWA clinic at Al-Far refugee camp had to suspend operations yesterday, but was able to resume today once the Israeli security forces left the area. OCHA has convened UN agencies and other UN humanitarian partners working in the West Bank. They stand ready to assess the damage and the people's needs and to respond accordingly. Agencies have also warned people of the risk of unexploded ordnances in some areas, and that will be one of the first issues that will need to be addressed. Meanwhile, on the political end, Tor Veneslan, the special coordinator for the UN in the region, continues to monitor the ceasefire and hostage release negotiations and to engage regularly with key national and international regional actors. He remains in contact with all relevant parties, reiterating the need to urgently reach a deal and the UN's commitment to support all efforts towards this goal. He's also held high-level talks with Israeli security officials regarding the incident involving the WFP vehicle that we told you about yesterday. In his discussions, he continues to raise his serious concerns about the deteriorating dynamics in the occupied West Bank. And as we said yesterday, Israeli forces must adhere to international law enforcement standards. Moving to Gaza, yesterday our WFP colleagues, as you know, decided to temporarily pause the movement of its employees across the Gaza Strip following the shooting of the vehicle. Despite the pause in staff movement, WFP continues its life-saving humanitarian operations in Gaza through cooperating partners and hopes to resume its staff missions as soon as the necessary safety security guarantees from Israeli authorities are received and they feel it is safe to resume the movement of staff. WFP, as you know, is committed to staying and to delivering for the people of Gaza, but the incident is a stark reminder of the rapidly and ever-shrinking humanitarian space for our colleagues. Also, just OCHA is mentioning in Gaza, is telling us in Gaza that Israeli authorities announced that displaced people could return to specific areas in Deir al-Balah. This is the first time where return is officially allowed to an evacuated area. Obviously, the evacuation orders that we've received, that Palestinians have received numerous times since the beginning of August, has severely disrupted our humanitarian work and our ability to work. Also want to flag that Saturday last, UN colleagues assessed the water, hygiene, and sanitation conditions in 2 sites hosting over 1,200 families in Rafah. People there are struggling with drinking water as no trucking is currently available. They report skin diseases being the main morbidity among women and children, with no treatment available when they go to medical points. Also, those residing in the areas near on the beach in Mawasi have had seawater flooding their tents. And just to flag, as you know, this afternoon the Security Council will meet to hear a humanitarian briefing on the area. Joyce Masuya will brief on behalf of OCHA, and Dr. Mike Ryan will also brief on behalf of WHO. I've been asked about the situation in Yemen and the Sunyon oil tanker, and I can tell you that we are encouraged by reports that the salvage operations for the tanker can proceed with tugboats and rescue ships to access the incident areas. This is a necessary step considering the grave risk posed by the fires reported above that tanker, which is, I remind you, carries 150,000 tons of crude oil, and it remains anchored in waters in the Red Sea, and the crew had been evacuated. We commend the ongoing concerted efforts of the international community, including through the work of our special envoy for Yemen, Hans Grunberg, and his engagement to secure the immediate access to the vessel and avert an environmental catastrophe. Once again, we say that Security Council Resolution 2722 and 2739 must be fully respected in their entirety, and we particularly call on the Houthis to immediately cease attacks against all merchant and commercial ships in the Red Sea.